Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Missouri, Republican Governor Mike Parson signed into law a bill banning abortions at 8 weeks of pregnancy. The bill does not make exceptions in the case of rape or incest. It also includes a provision that would completely ban abortion at any stage if Roe v. Wade is overturned. Architects of the bill, as well as similar bills in Alabama and other states, say they're aimed at overturning Roe v. Wade, the landmark 1973 Supreme Court ruling that recognizes the constitutional right to an abortion. Meanwhile, a federal judge Friday blocked a Mississippi law banning abortions as early as 6 weeks into pregnancy, which was set to go into effect July 1st. In a blow to President Trump's attempt to build a massive wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, a federal judge in California Friday blocked Trump from redirecting $1 billion of Army personnel funds to build sections of the wall as part of his declaration of a national emergency. In his ruling, Judge Haywood Gilliam said, quote, "The position that when Congress declines the executive's request to appropriate funds, the executive nonetheless may simply find a way to spend those funds without Congress does not square with fundamental separation of powers principles," the judge said. The decision came in response to a lawsuit brought by the Sierra Club and the Southern Border Communities Coalition and affects portions of the wall running through Yuma, Arizona and El Paso, Texas. Meanwhile, a group called We Build the Wall has said they successfully completed construction on half a mile of border wall on private property in El Paso. The group is backed by Steve Bannon and former Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach. European parliamentary elections took place over 4 days of voting that saw the highest turnout since 1994. Centrist parties lost dozens of seats, while far-right nationalists and progressive Green candidates gained significant ground. In France, the far-right national rally led by Marine Le Pen narrowly beat the centrist alliance led by French President Emmanuel Macron amid widespread discontent with the government and months of popular protests by the Yellow Vest movement. In Britain, the Brexit Party, led by Nigel Farage, came in first with 31% of the vote. The elections came soon after Prime Minister Theresa May announced her resignation over the failure to pass her Brexit deal. In Italy, far-right Nationalist League Party placed first, while Hungarian right-wing Prime Minister Viktor Orban's Fidesz party is set to score around 52% of the vote. The Green Party soared in popularity in many countries, especially Germany, where it placed second. Greens also did well in Finland, France, and Ireland. The next president of the European Commission will likely be Bas Eickhout of the Dutch Green Party. In Spain, leftist Barcelona mayor Ada Colau lost to the Catalan separatist Ernest Maragall by less than 5,000 votes. And the Madrid mayor, Manuela Carmena, said she'll step down despite winning the most votes after a right-wing bloc collectively gained enough support to claim control over Madrid City Hall. We'll have more on the European Parliament elections after headlines. President Trump appeared to tone down recent U.S. rhetoric against Iran over the weekend during an official trip to Japan, saying he was not seeking regime change in Iran and was simply interested in preventing Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif rebuked Trump's statements Monday, saying Iran was not seeking nuclear arms, saying via Twitter, quote, "Economic terrorism is hurting the Iranian people and causing tension in the region. Actions, not words, will show whether or not that's real Donald Trump's intent," the foreign minister said. The U.S. pulled out of the landmark 2015 Iran nuclear agreement last year, despite European allies and the United Nations saying Iran was in full compliance. On Friday, Trump said he was sending 1,500 more troops to the Middle East, a move Zarif characterizes as dangerous and said must be countered. The Iranian foreign minister Zarif met with his Iraqi counterpart over the weekend as both parties urged regional cooperation in the face of escalating tensions with the United States. This is the Iraqi foreign minister, Mohammed al-Hakim.
We are clearly saying that we are against the unilateral measures taken by the United States. We are completely against these instructions and orders given to our neighbor Iran. We are standing by neighboring Iran in its position, and God willing, we can play an intermediary role between the parties if asked from Iraq.
Also, while in Japan, Trump dismissed concerns over recent missile tests by North Korea, coming to leader Kim Jong-un's defense and reiterating optimism over a future denuclearization deal. North Korea conducted 2 tests this month, firing off at least 3 missiles. Trump also welcomed comments recently aired on North Korean state media about Democratic presidential candidate, former Vice President Joe Biden.
Kim Jong-un made a statement that Joe Biden is a low IQ individual. He probably is, based on his record. I think I agree with him on that. But at the same time, my people think it could have been a violation, as you know. I view it differently. I view it as a man. Perhaps he wants to get attention, and perhaps not. Who knows? It doesn't matter. All I know is that there have been no nuclear tests.
Trump also suggested via Twitter the comments about Biden may be a direct signal sent from Kim. In February, much anticipated denuclearization talks between Trump and Kim ended after Trump walked out during negotiations. North Korea has repeatedly said sanctions relief is a necessary condition in any future agreement. The United Nations confirmed a Saudi-led airstrike on Friday killed 12 civilians, including 7 children, in the southern city of Taiz. The UN said at least 27 children in Yemen have been killed or injured over a period of 10 days. Friday's attack came as Trump announced he was declaring a national emergency to push through $7 billion worth of U.S. weapons sales to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The declaration allows Trump to circumvent Congress, which has used the War Powers Resolution to oppose military support for the war in Yemen. The head of Citizenship and Immigration Services, L. Francis Cisna, was forced to resign Friday as the Trump administration continues its purge of top immigration officials, a plan reportedly orchestrated by the hardline anti-immigrant advisor Stephen Miller. Former Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli is reportedly slated to take on the role of immigration czar. As a state lawmaker in Virginia, Cuccinelli authored legislation seeking to force employees to speak English in the workplace, and he unsuccessfully fought to eliminate the 14th Amendment's birthright citizenship clause. Oklahoma reached an $85 million settlement deal with Teva Pharmaceutical Sunday, just ahead of today's landmark trial brought by Oklahoma against drug companies responsible for the deadly opioid crisis. Oklahoma settled with Purdue Pharma in March for $270 million. The trial is still set to go ahead with remaining defendant Johnson & Johnson. Oklahoma is the first civil trial against a drug company for their role in the opioid epidemic. In court filings, the Oklahoma Attorney General Mike Hunter likened Johnson & Johnson to a drug kingpin, which has been targeting an unsuspecting public since the 1990s. There are nearly 1,900 federal and state lawsuits targeting drug makers and distributors pending around the country. In related news, J.P. Morgan Chase has cut ties with Purdue Pharma, the makers of the highly addictive opioid OxyContin, according to recent reporting by Reuters. The Transportation Security Administration will allow a pediatric epilepsy drug that contains cannabis on flights. The drug is approved by the FDA for children who have epileptic seizures. It's the first time medical marijuana has been allowed on flights. The New York Times is reporting the Trump administration's ramping up its assault on climate science through a coordinated multi-agency effort. The National Climate Assessment will reportedly remove any worst-case scenario projections in upcoming reports, as well as set up a climate change review panel that would, quote, question the assessment's conclusions. In addition, the National Security Council under John Bolton has also been told to remove references to climate change in speeches and public statements, and the U.S. Geological Survey will no longer project the impact of climate change through the end of the century, but stop at the year 2040. One of the architects of the Trump administration's climate policy is William Happer, a known climate science denier who once compared the fight against climate change to the Holocaust, saying, quote, the demonization of carbon dioxide is just like the demonization of the poor Jews under Hitler. Tornadoes, heavy storms, and flooding left a trail of damage across the Midwest over the weekend. In Oklahoma, 2 people were killed Saturday as a tornado ripped through a hotel and homes in the town of El Reno. Tens of thousands have been left without power after tornadoes hit near Dayton, Ohio, and parts of Indiana overnight Monday. Authorities warn more severe weather would hit the region as the week progresses. Residents in Oklahoma and Arkansas are bracing for potentially devastating flooding of the Arkansas River. Meanwhile, in parts of the southeast, temperatures hit record highs, topping 100 degrees Fahrenheit in Georgia. The heat, which is about 15% higher than normal for this time of year, combined with low rainfall, has raised concern for possible wildfires in the region. And 2 members of the Move 9 were released from prison on parole Saturday. Janine Phillips Africa and Janet Holloway Africa spent 40 years behind bars after being convicted of third-degree murder in police officer James Ramp's 1978 death. They were arrested with 7 others following a Philadelphia police raid on the House of Move, a radical anti-police brutality and largely African-American group. Husband and wife Mike Africa Sr. and Debbie Africa were both released last year and have since married. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.